Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 167. I've just realised that when I edit these episodes, I don't do much to them. I feed them into an edit thing and I play around with it a bit. I'm not always applying something, which means the episodes probably all sound very different. Like, I try to apply a thing that says make volume consistent and it edits it all. I've just realised I didn't do it to the last one. So if you're binge listening to these, that's why some of them sound, I don't know, maybe they sound clearer to you, maybe they don't. But the make volume consistent thing, I think it's meant to take... So in audio engineering, not that I know much about it, but I know what plosives are. Plosives are that sound that you're hearing when I say the letter P or B or D. And then there's also the sound that you get from the S's. So this is meant to like balance all that out. Anyway, fuck that. So what do I want to talk about? Let's talk about quantities. Something that I have learned since being back at my mum's is the way that my mum praises kids for eating. Because it's what she used to do to us. So, for example, if my kids sit down and eat dinner and they eat quite a lot of it, my mum will say, "Oh, you did well." Yeah, and it's like, well, what do you mean they did well? But and this is what this is going to be all about, right? We need to stop thinking about food in quantitative terms. We live in a world that it's all about, it's all drived towards excess, right? Everything's excess. Eat all you... I was thinking about this the other day. So I've eaten out quite a lot over the last couple of months. And when you're looking for places to eat and you're looking at reviews, people praise the portion sizes. And you immediately can tell, if somebody is praising the portion size, it's big portions, then like... The way that I think about a portion size is, like, it doesn't matter how much food is on a plate. I will eat until I am almost full and then I'll stop eating. That's my portion size. I let my body tell me what the portion size is and how hungry I am at that time and how much I need to eat at that time. I wasn't always like that. Once upon a time, I was a quantitative eater. Everything was about eating as much as you could. Eating all the takeaway because you've paid for it, clearing your plate in the restaurant because you were paying for it, putting out big allowing how hungry you were when you were preparing a meal to dictate how much food that you put on a plate, but then also being someone who cleared every plate, going to all you can eat buffets and taking that as a challenge. So really this is all kind of stemming from that. Why are we praising kids for the quantities that they eat? Because I think I said this in another episode recently about how we are fast approaching. I don't know what the figures are. It changes all the time. But last I checked, it was something like between 63 and 66% of adults in the UK are overweight or obese. In fact, I'm going to look it up. I'll pause this. Okay, right now, the most recent estimate that covers 2025 and early 2026 shows that 64 to 65% of adults in the UK are classed as overweight or obese. Okay, so we can say that the majority of adults are overweight or obese. Now, if you go back just 50 years, now, this is a bit challenging because, we can't take a massive amount from this because they probably didn't keep as great records. They probably didn't have as comprehensive surveys as we do now. But data back then tends to start in the late 70s, early 80s. And that early data suggested that in the UK, roughly 6% of men and 9% of women were obese, right? Obesity was extremely rare back then. Now, we can't take a massive amount from the figures, but what we can say is that obesity was low 50 years ago. Not just obesity, but being overweight was unusual back then compared to how it is now. And I feel like because being overweight is becoming more normal, like there's nothing wrong with being overweight, right? It's entirely down to a person to decide if they want to be overweight or not, if they're comfortable and happy being overweight or not. But the numbers tell us that it's a massive problem, right? I don't know I've not looked into this for a long time, what the strain is that obesity puts on the NHS, then the people that go on to develop type 2 diabetes. You know, it's so important to know that nobody is waking up on a daily basis and saying, right, what can I do today to make myself even more overweight? It's not like that. God, if you're old enough to remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer found out that if you were a certain weight, you didn't have to go into work. So then he started eating everything he could to become overweight to work from home. People don't do that. It just happens. And I think that we are in this kind of what seems to be a never-ending cycle of, and we're not doing it deliberately. You know, we're not deliberately trying to have a negative impact on our kids. We're not deliberately trying to increase their weight. We're not deliberately trying to set them up with poor eating habits for the future. But if we're not aware of the way that we speak, like if we don't understand that the way that we talk about ourselves, the way that we talk about food, the things that our kids see. I posted something last week on Instagram about how my mum, I have, at the age of 41, I have vivid memories of watching my mum when I was a young boy walking around. So she's just made lunch for me and my brother and sister. I'm the eldest. I did have an older brother. He died the year before I was born. Little trivia for you that you didn't know. She would make our lunch. We would be sat eating that lunch in the kitchen, and then it would be her turn. And the book would come out, whether it was Weight Watchers or Slimming World or Scottish Slimmers or whatever was the thing at that time in the 90s. And she would start wandering around the kitchen asking herself, what am I allowed to eat? And she would look at her little book, and she would look in the cupboards, and she would look at her points, and she would look at what she'd already had that day, and she'd look at what she had left. And it was just a never-ending cycle of permission-based eating. And her not realising that, we're sitting watching that and taking that on, and it's having an effect on us. Like I said before, like that's, all that stuff from back then had an impact on me in terms of clearing every plate and not being allowed to leave the table, food being used as a reward, food being used as a threat. Eat all that and you'll get this. Don't eat all that and you won't get this. But yeah, where do you even start? It's a challenging thing to try and explain, to break it down in terms that other people will understand. I remember when Jacob was at school, he was in primary 1, he would have been 5 years old, so 11 years ago. Jacob came home from school, so excited to tell me about what he'd been learning that day, because he knew what I did for a job. Okay, so my kids know that I'm a nutritionist. We don't talk about weight. We don't talk about weight loss. I don't tell them that I try and help people lose weight. What they understand about what I do is that I help people who aren't sure how to eat healthy, who aren't sure how to take care of themselves and eat well. I help them learn how to do that. So that's their understanding of what I do. They think that I am a teacher and I teach people how to do something that they're not very good at, essentially. That's their understanding of it. So obviously 5 years old, Jacob had a very basic understanding that, daddy does this for a job. And he came home from school and could not wait to tell me that today at school, we were learning about healthy and unhealthy food. And I went, holy shit. But obviously I kept a positive face on it because he was dead excited to tell me. I'm like, oh my God, wow, amazing. Tell me all about it. So then he went and got all his little food from his little kitchen and his little basket, and he started picking everything up and showing me it. Bread. So what had happened was, sorry, I was sorting the fire. That's what the squeaking was. what the teacher had done was got 2 baskets of food. One basket was full of unhealthy food. One basket was full of healthy food. And she tipped them on the floor. And the kids all had to go and pick up one each. And they all took turns. So Jacob stood up. I can't even remember what he had in his hand. And he stood up with his. And the teacher's like, okay, what do we think about bread? Is bread healthy or unhealthy? Unhealthy. Yes, bread is unhealthy. What do we think about lettuce? Healthy. Yes, healthy. What do we think about pizza? Unhealthy. Yes. Now that is fucking horrendous. That's awful. Absolutely. I don't want to swear too much. Just pretend I'm swearing a lot. That is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. For me especially, right? I sit here. I'm at my desk just now. I sit here on a daily basis at my desk, helping people with their all or nothing thinking, helping people with their relationship with food, helping people try to stop thinking about food in good and bad terms because it ruins food for them. It creates awful eating habits. It creates a lot of food guilt. It creates a lot of weight gain. And it creates a lot of distress and impacts people's physical and mental health. And yet, at the other end of the scale, I can see where it comes from. It's not just parents. It's not just grandparents. That is being taught. That was taught, might not still be, but that was taught on my son's very first year of primary school. Now, it's not anybody's, it's somebody's fault, but it's not the teacher's fault. Teachers are not nutritionists. Teachers don't understand this stuff. All they're doing is and I posted about this on social media at the time on my stories and explained it, and I had lots and lots of teachers reach out to me about it and agree that it was terrible, but all they were doing was, I don't remember, it's beyond me, but they had some sort of teaching resources that they had access to, right? So it's like, okay, in your curriculum, this week you're teaching your kids about this. So you go to that resource centre and you grab the resources that you want to get, and then you put a lesson together for it, right? That's my understanding of it. It was a while ago now. So all they're doing, they're not, yes, they're partly making up the lesson to make it fun and interactive and engaging, but they're working from a template. They're working from what they've got access to. And this whole splitting foods up into good and bad foods, it honestly makes me feel physically sick when I think about it, because how many of those young primary 1 children are going to go on and develop food problems? Do you know what the crazy thing was? I can't remember exactly what it was, so I'll just make up an example. But they were taught what good and bad foods were. They were placing burgers and pizza and chips in the bad foods. And then they went to the canteen to get their lunch that day. And it was something like that. What did you have for lunch today? Or pizza or burger or macaroni cheese or hot dog. So how confusing is that, right? Imagine sitting through a lesson about good and bad foods. It's very fresh in your mind, and the bell goes and the teacher says, right, we're going to break for lunch. And then you go to lunch and you're sat there with your friends and you're eating a burger, and one of them goes, oh, look, guys, this is unhealthy. This is a bad food. That's horrible. I don't know how that makes you feel when you hear me talking about that, but it gives me the ick. Again, it makes my stomach feel horrendous. But you may be connected to it in your own unique way. I'm connected to it in thousands of ways from the people that I've worked with, and the common challenges that the vast majority of people who struggle with their weight face, like thinking in good and bad terms, feeling guilty for eating, feeling regret after they've had chocolate, eating 3 squares of chocolate, a food that they label as bad, and then eating the whole bar in response to how they're feeling. Nobody is born with we're not born with all or nothing thinking. We're not born with any preconceptions around good and bad, whether it applies to food or not. That's given to us. That is taught to us, whether directly or indirectly. Whether it's being sat in a classroom and being told from a teacher, someone that you're supposed to look up to and respect, that this is good, this is bad, this is healthy, this is unhealthy. Or, like me listening to my mum talk to another mum, saying, oh God, I've eaten so much crap today. Crap? What's crap? What have you eaten? Oh, you've had crisps. Crisps are crap. So that's what I mean, directly and indirectly, whether it's been taught to you in a classroom or indirectly taught to you by, earwigging on adult conversations, as most of us did when we were kids. But coming back to the whole quantitative thing, it's not about trying to stop your kids from growing up with these terrible eating habits. It's about developing your awareness of the way that you think and act and speak. I have worked with people for months, and they really struggle. We could have been working together for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and they will find ways to dance around saying they'll do anything to avoid using the word bad, but they'll still say it. I've not eaten well. I've not eaten very good. They're still trying to make out like they're not eating healthy, basically. But they're finding different ways to say it. Or we could be 6 months in and somebody will be like, I ended up eating rubbish all weekend. And it's like, holy shit, how many times have we spoken about this? And it's not me getting annoyed. It's me pointing out, like, how many times have we spoken about this? And look at how much, look at you still managing to default to that. We've went through this many times. You're writing this. You know that I'm going to read it. And by this point, I'm going to say something about it. But there's still that default core part of you that splits the world up into these two opposing forces, good and bad, healthy, unhealthy. All the negative labeling, junk, crap, rubbish. And then there's the things that we don't think about. That's the obvious stuff, right? Then there's the stuff that we don't think about, which comes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Why are we praising, why? Think about the attachment that you're creating there, right? Your kid comes and sits down. Kids want to please us. They want to impress us. They want praise. And they want attention. Quite often, some of that can come. Attention is attention when it comes to a kid, whether it's bad or good. Sometimes they'll do stuff to get your attention because they know it's naughty and it's going to get some sort of attention. Sometimes it's the opposite. But the point is, if your kid learns that it gets praised, do you know why I said it? Because I started thinking about dogs there, and I was going to bring a dog analogy in, and I changed my mind. Sorry. If your kids learn that they get praised based on the quantity of food that they've eaten, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do when they want to impress you, when they want to cheer you up? Oh, look how much I've eaten, Mummy. I've nearly eaten it all. Or, yeah, when they're trying to impress you, or maybe they want something, or they're trying to do something good, or whatever the case might be, and they've learned that, well, when I sit down and eat, I get told that I've done a good job when I eat lots. And it's something so ridiculously basic that we don't really take the time to think about the negative impact that that's potentially having. We need to stop praising quantities. Who gives a shit how much someone's eaten? Like, why is that something to praise? We should be praising them for stopping eating when they feel full. That's what I do with my kids, in case you're curious. So my boys, we're at a point now where the three of us sit down and eat dinner, and Carol say, my youngest, will say, I've had enough. Jacob will always say, I'm full. Do you know what the amazing thing about Jacob is? Jacob will say, I'm full. And there'll be like 2 or 3 chips left, or 2 or 3 bits of pasta, or I don't know, a tiny little bit of something, and I'll be like, yep, is your tummy full? Yep, awesome. Like, it does not enter his mind, and it would have mine when I was his age, it does not enter his mind that, well, there's only 3 bits left, I might as well eat them. Whereas when I was a boy, my mum would have said, oh, you've only got a little bit left, you'd be as well finishing it. It's never too late to start working on your kids' eating habits, and it's never too late to start having these conversations with them. And in case you're wondering, I've probably covered this in another podcast episode somewhere, like how to speak to kids. Because the thing is, if I tell you to stop speaking in good and bad terms and you do it, the problem is you don't know how else to talk about it. Because your brain works in opposing forces, dichotomous thinking, black and white thinking, polarized thinking, all or nothing thinking. You live in a world of 2 parts. If it's not good, it's bad. If it's not bad, it's good. So how do you speak about food to kids? I don't have like a right way to do this. Like, there is no, I'm not saying that this is the only way you should do it. But something that I find extremely helpful, and this isn't just for kids, it's for, I use this with clients as well. We think of food in terms of there are some of the time foods and there are most of the time foods. That's it. So everything that you would previously have labelled as good, that's one of your most of the time foods. Anything you would have previously labelled as bad or junk or crap or rubbish or whatever or unhealthy, those are your some of the time foods. The explanation I give to my kids is most of the time foods, we eat them most of the time because those are the ones that your body needs the most. It needs, well, I don't talk to them about proteins specifically, but it needs fruits and vegetables, and it needs fish or meat or dairy. I don't quite get into it with them, but however you want to explain it in your own terms. But it's more, I kind of go more at, I'll explain that chicken and burgers and meatballs and what else? Chicken, burgers, meatballs, spaghetti bolognese, anything that has meat in it is helping us with big, strong bones, big, strong muscles. It's helping our immune system so that we don't get the colds and we don't get coughs and we don't get sick. It helps us grow nice, strong nails, and it helps our teeth and our hair grow. And then I explain like fruits and vegetables, we just kind of explain it from a similar perspective. It helps us have nice, strong, healthy, fit bodies. So we eat that stuff most of the time because that's the one that our body needs the most of. And then there are the some of the time foods, because these are ones that our body doesn't really want to need. It doesn't really need. And we're not going to give it lots of that, because if it doesn't need it, we don't have to give it lots. We want to make sure that this is where most adults get it backwards, right? The some of the time foods, they have most of the time, and the most of the time foods, they have some of the time. So that's the way that I come at it. So what we're doing there is we're moving away from black and white thinking. We're moving away from positive and negative labeling, and we're moving closer towards a balanced approach, the middle ground. It's an inclusive approach that does not say that you should only have one thing and never have any of the other thing. It's an inclusive approach that says you should have all of this, but this stuff you're going to have most of the time. This stuff you're going to have some of the time. There's no restriction involved. There's no good or bad. There's no morality. What we're teaching is balance. We're not teaching black and white thinking. We're not living in a world of extremes. We're not living in you do this or you don't do this. And it's also not restrictive in terms of like, it's not permissive in terms of you're only allowed to eat these at the weekend or you're only allowed to do this. You're saying that this is how you eat for most of the day. This is how you eat for some of the day. And that's it. But yeah. Good luck translating all of that and passing it on to your kids. It's a big thing for me, and it does come up a lot in the people I work with, and I love it when it does. I love it when people ask the questions like, I'm trying to talk differently in front of the kids. What do I do when the kids start talking about healthy and unhealthy and good and bad? What happens when they start repeating the things that I've taught them? So you just teach them in the same way that you taught them before. You explain to them that there aren't healthy and unhealthy. But you said, yeah, but I was wrong. I've learned something different now. This is how we're going to talk about it. It's never too late to do that. And it's also okay to admit that you're wrong in front of the kids and come at something from a different approach. Like you're teaching them that the things that they're learning, you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to think differently. It's okay to say, I was wrong, and take responsibility and say, do you know what? That was wrong. I've learned something different now. This is actually what we should be doing. Anyway, enough from me. Until next time.